Well, good afternoon. This is Kathleen Caldwell, founder of C-Suite Network's Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. We are so delighted today. We're celebrating International Coaching Week 2023, and we are so delighted to talk about potential. That's the theme of the week. And I must lean in and say, I love the concept of potential. However, I love much even more the concept of action and realization and taking charge. And so this week, we have got the best of the best talking about how to increase your potential, maximize, optimize your potential. And today's topic, we get to feature Cindy Watson. I can't wait to tell you more about Cindy in a moment, but we're going to talk about the art of feminine negotiation and what we need to know to optimize our sales, our business, our life. And so we'll jump into that in just a moment. And so with that, I'm so delighted to be the founder of C-Suite Network's Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. I'm a speaker, an author, Kathleen Caldwell, a founder of this wonderful council where we get to showcase you, highlight you, and promote you as a coach, consultant, trusted advisor, thought leader, and expert, and to help you elevate and raise up yourself and your business. So that's why we're here. And I always like to start with a definition because what really is potential? And I love this word because it's not only an adjective, it's also a noun. And of course, as you can read on the screen, existing in possibility. And it's a beautiful way of being capable of development into actuality. It's like living in this idea of something, this opportunity of something. And then, of course, the noun is someone's or something's ability to develop, achieve, or succeed. And so, as you know, in our council, we love this concept and we love to take the next step because it's pretty easy just to kind of live in this beautiful, beautiful ether of potential. And I could be doing things and I should be doing things and I'd love to be doing things. Well, we take action, of course. And so just wondering for a moment as you watch our program and you're interacting with us, so grateful that you're here, is what does really potential mean to you? And also as a coach consultant, are you guiding and mentoring your clients to live in their potential and to live into what are the next steps? So be a potential coach. And it's exciting, it's positive, it's optimistic, and it's really where people want to be. They want to be in the optimism of what's next. And so it is my delight to introduce and welcome our esteemed faculty member speaker for today, Cindy Watson. Oh my goodness, Cindy Watson, a dear friend, a colleague, a woman whom I admire greatly, personally and professionally. Sisters and brothers watching this program, she is definitely a powerhouse. And she is founder of Watson Labor Law, a organization, a company that's all about optimizing people's rights, their abilities, and labor law. So she's been involved with negotiation and arbitration and all kinds of things to bring people together and to understand the power of relationships, negotiating. And for us as women coaches, we've got a lot to learn. We didn't learn about negotiation in our coach training. Yes, we learned about the 12 core competencies. But yet we didn't learn about running a successful business. And so as Cindy and I were preparing for our time together, we know as coaches, we're all about collaboration, co-acceleration, but oftentimes we know more about capitulation and bowing to the clients and not standing up when it comes to what's the important things in regard to negotiating contracts and sales and agreements and opportunities. So I highly recommend that you also purchase Cindy's new book, Learning the Art of Feminine Negotiation. And so it's from the boardroom to the bedroom, getting what you want. So with that, Cindy would love to invite you to our podium to talk about how to optimize your potential by learning the art of feminine negotiation. There we go. So turning it over to you, Cindy.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. As always, it is fantastic to be here, and happy National Coaching Week to everybody. I'm really excited to be here and kickstart this fabulous program that Kathleen has put together for you guys this week. You're just going to have all kinds of talent showing up here this week and sharing information that hopefully you can apply in your life. And I also just wanted to mention as well, Kathleen introduced me as the founder of my law firm, also the founder of Women on Purpose. And the only reason I've raised that is because I don't want you to think that I'm preaching at you here from outside and I don't understand it. I'm going to have us rolling up our sleeves today and talking about how you can apply the art of feminine negotiation to up-level your sales. And I want you to know, as somebody who also has a business as a coach and consultant, that I am in it with you. I understand, I feel your pain. And I certainly am speaking from a place of experience as well, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, about how we show up and maybe ways we can show up better to get more. I always love the energy from this powerful group of powerhouse women, and there will be a Q&A at the end, so just jot down any questions that you may have. And first, let me congratulate all of you for the important work that you do. You know, the more I get to spend time, the more I learn about each of your missions, the more excited I get to share the art of feminine negotiation. And today, as I say, we're going to be exploring how the art of feminine negotiation, or persuasion, as I like to call it, can take your coaching or consulting business to the next level. You know, for many of you here, I've spoken about my models before, but today I'm going to reframe some of the simple models that we've discussed from my Art of Feminine Negotiation program, specifically so you can see their value in selling your program, selling your consulting work, selling your coaching programs. Now, we're not going to be able to really dig in, obviously, to every model, but I definitely, at the very least, hope to whet your appetite and show you how easy it is to apply in your business and your life, frankly, to be able to get more of what you want and deserve. From higher price points, you know, valuing yourself so that you are charging more and getting what you are worth, to also closing more sales, to be able and doing it in a way that is more authentic, with more pull and a little less push. And I hope to give you some practical takeaway tips as well that you can start to apply right away after this today. So, and before we dive in, as always, I want to address two possible sticking points right out of the gate. One is the use of the word negotiation. You know, my clients often scratch their heads and say, you know, why do you call it negotiation training? A lot of people don't see negotiation as a priority. Isn't that sort of hurting your position? And that is true. Sadly, most people do not recognize all of life as a negotiation, but it's one of the reasons I use the word still. I choose to focus on negotiation because I want us to reframe how we look at it, not just picturing people in boardrooms, in power suits, or in the courtroom, but also recognizing that all of life is a negotiation at the micro and macro level, and your interactions with your clients are negotiations as well. We negotiate every day in a myriad of ways, and I think the more we lift our awareness about that and show up with more intention in our negotiations, the more you will get. And again, many of you may not think about selling your program, selling your coaching work, selling your consulting business as a negotiation. You know, you've got a set price for your programs or a set price for your consultancy work, and you think of your discovery calls or breakthrough sessions as sales calls. You make the pitch to make the sale. So I am hoping by the end of our chat together today, I want you to rethink that and really think of it as a negotiation. I want you to prepare for it like a negotiation. And think about it. Negotiation is the art of persuasion and influence, you know, and the effectiveness of your sales depends on your ability to influence and persuade those prospective clients. And it starts from negotiating your own mindset, you know, to then negotiating your relationships with your prospective clients and their relationship with themselves, which I think we often forget. And to me, that is the key that will elevate your ability to sell more persuasively. You know, their relationship with themselves and their partners or other people who they may see as an obstacle in this. Sales is really, it's a negotiation dance at its core. So for all of you gorgeous entrepreneurs and coaches and consultants, negotiation is key for your mindset, for your prospective clients' mindset, for your persuasiveness in getting their buy-in, for your leadership in your business, with your staff, with suppliers, with your clients, in your communities, and beyond. So I said there were two possible sticking points. One, that one about the negotiation, just wanted a quick reframe to get that out of the way. And the second is the use of the word feminine. You know, I often get a lot of pushback about that. And just want to clarify, when I speak to feminine, I'm not talking about gender. There's no one way to be a woman or a man or any of the beautiful spaces in between. We all have masculine and feminine energy. And I have certainly been on a mission to reframe negotiation and get away from that more masculine model, if you will. And part of that is redefining success. And my reframes, not going to come as a surprise to most of you, have really focused on leaning into our feminine. And that's because, after a lot of research and a lot of work on this mission and on this journey, I am more and more convinced every day that the solution starts with that simple shift. And as some of you know, I did a TEDx talk back in 2020 on the rise of the feminine voice as the key to our future. And the idea of the talk was that the world's out of balance because we've lost touch with our feminine. It's not a new concept, but interestingly, it was still treated as novel. And I mentioned the pandemic because COVID, I believe, has opened the world to a new way of thinking and a new way of being. I think most people are much more open to a new way of being, a new way of doing business, a new way of experiencing life, frankly, than they were before. And the reason I mention that is because I think the message that we're going to be chatting about here today is particularly timely now. And I really invite you to take advantage of this opportunity in your entrepreneurial business, in your coaching work, in your consulting work. I believe the time is now to lean into your feminine, to really dig in on this, explore as many different aspects of this as you can and bring it to the table, because there is a new appreciation for the value of feminine energy in business, in politics, and beyond. And, I've been asked now to speak at business schools, law symposiums, ombudsman's councils. I was asked to speak in Greece on feminine wisdom. These are different forums than I was seeing at the beginning of this journey when I talked about feminine negotiation. There is an opening to this, an openness, and the value of feminine stock, if you will, has gone up. I think feminine traits are being recognized as key leadership skills in a more meaningful way than they have, certainly in my lifetime. And I'm getting up there, so I'm guessing your lifetime as well. So let's dig in and let's consider, how can we use feminine energy and the art of feminine negotiation to boost your businesses? I think the starting point is that the problem is, for too long, we have undervalued our feminine. And, as you can gather already, I believe that's one of the reasons that the world is out of balance, is because that masculine and feminine energy is out of balance. We discounted the feminine voice for generations. We buy into this myth that we live in a man's world. I'm guilty of saying that. I know most people in my circle, we talk about it being, it's a man's world, it's a man's world. And when we buy into that myth, we reinforce, I think, certain definitions of success and certain models of operation that do not serve us. And we define success at its core across the board based on that more masculine model. And both men and women, if we believe that's the path to success, is that more competitive masculine model, then three guesses what we do. We stifle our feminine in favor of that competitive model. We see our feminine as a liability, and so we keep tipping the scales. And as I often confess right out of the gate, I was guilty. In my law practice, my clients called me the Barracuda. I showed up as a young 20-something out of law school and thought, I'm the only woman here. If I'm going to be taken seriously, I better get a little scrappier. I definitely bought into the myth that toughness carries the day. And as I say, it comes back, I think that first and most important negotiation is with ourselves. I had to flip my mindset around that. And I really invite you to as well. Negotiate your mindset and make no mistake, it is a negotiation. It is a choice. So that's the good news. The good news is that it is a choice, notwithstanding generational conditioning, notwithstanding unconscious gender bias, notwithstanding all of the messaging we may have got growing up that we are not enough, that we need to play small, that we need to play nice. We can make a choice to shift that mindset. So I invite you to recognize the power of your feminine. A lot of work I do with my clients at the front end is pushing past some of those limiting beliefs that have held us back, that, make us feel that we're not enough, that make us feel the only path to success is taking that more beat your chest kind of competitive style. So the first step is recognizing and overcoming the blocks that are maybe stopping you, believing that you don't deserve more, resistance to receiving. This is deep conditioning for women, right? Living in a one-day mindset. When this happens, then I can live into my future. Then I can charge more. Then I can ask for what I want. Then I can build my business. So I think it shows up either as us stepping back and not asking and undervaluing ourselves, or at the other end, it shows up with that push energy and approach rather than a pull energy approach. So let's spend a minute talking about the models that we typically see today, the models that presumably we believe we need to follow to be successful. And I invite all of you to just think about most of the big names in sort of the thought leader industry, for example, or the big names in personal development, right? Or whatever area where you're coaching or consulting. I know for myself, when I started doing that little mental inventory, thinking about who are the big players out there, I noticed a couple of things. The first was that most of the names that popped to mind were men. All right. And that's a concern because women are playing on a smaller scale. And the second thing I noticed was that the women who were getting noticed tended to be women using that same approach, that push approach, because that was the other thing that I noticed about most of the key players. Their approach, however much they talk about personal development, they're still coming from that very masculine push approach. And think about all the advice I got, everything we're seeing out in the industry, everything we're seeing in all of the programming that's being offered. If you want to make your $1 million or your $1 billion, if you want to be that 7-figure or 8-figure, you need to be pushing those emails out, pushing those SMS texts out, pushing your offers out, pushing the content out, pushing your ads out. The list goes on. I'm sure you've all heard enough of it. I don't need to reinforce that. But even for the discovery sessions, for those sales calls, again, regardless of what industry you're in, pushing for the sale, right? And I don't know if that resonates with you. I want you to take a moment to think about that. It is exhausting. And that approach is never ending. And frankly, if you even look at like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi now, my gosh, they have been in the game for decades, and everybody sees them as being at sort of the top, the pinnacle, if you will, of that sort of industry. And yet it's really been striking me more and more. They are still pushing. It is this constant grind, produce. It's like grinding out those sales. And it's a numbers game. And I've been in a lot of these top sort of masterminds and with some of these key leaders, and some of them talk about conversion rates as low as 1%. It's total numbers. They'll push out, 100,000, try and get that message out to 100,000 just to get that 1% conversion, all about those numbers. This is not a feminine approach. All right. I want you to take a minute to really absorb that. And hopefully that sets the stage as you're thinking about that for maybe it's time we shift that approach. Maybe we stop buying into that as the model that makes the most sense. And maybe we start looking at applying, I call it the art of feminine negotiation. You call it what you want, but maybe we start applying that more feminine approach in our business. Bring the feminine, build your business based on building relationship. Because frankly, I believe the public today, particularly post-COVID, whether they know it or not, for some it's conscious, for some it's not even conscious yet, but people are craving relationship. And I believe if you lean into that feminine, if you really lean into being a relationship builder, where you build your business based on intentional relationship building, you are going to set yourself apart. Your prospective clients are craving relationship. So I want to share today 3 simple models. As I say, I've talked about them before, but I want to talk about them specifically in the context of your sales protocols today, because preparation is key in negotiations, whether in your personal or your professional life. And as a little side note here, even when you are negotiating with your intimate partner, your kids, with your best friends, I don't care, any of your personal negotiations, A, recognize them as negotiations, and B, prepare for them in the same way that you would for your professional negotiations. It will allow you to negotiate a better life. So as part of your preparation, I want you to practice and invoke these 3 simple models that I'm going to share with you here today. And in fact, any one of them to start will up-level your negotiation prowess and get you better outcomes. So pay attention to all of them, but know that even invoking any one of them will start to make a difference already. So we'll only have time today for me, as I say, to introduce the concepts, and I'm going to give you enough meat so that you can not only have a taste of their value, but come away with some concrete skills that you can start to implement, as I say, right away. And I want you to go through this model sort of checklist, if you will, in the order that I'm presenting them today. The first is what I call the no fear model. And it's simple, FEAR, fear, ego, attachment, and reactivity. And I advocate very strongly that as part of your preparation for any negotiation, whether personal, professional, or global, frankly, but particularly for sales, as we're talking about today, to do a quick check-in on my no fear scale. And as I go through each item, I invite you to think of a sales conversation that you have coming up and consider how this simple check-in could help you get better outcomes. So let's start with the F for fear. I invite you to ask yourself, as a part of your quick check-in, when you're preparing to go into that sales call, ask yourself, what fears might be driving me or showing up for this particular sales call, for this negotiation? Is it a fear of failure? A fear of getting no? I know for me, that was it. When I'm being really honest, and if I'm being vulnerable with you, certainly at the beginning of this process, there was a lot of fear of getting those no's, getting that failure, fear of rejection, right? Fear of missing out by doing it. No, a little bit of fear of success, probably, right? That what if, a fear of being judged, who am I? So consider those fears for yourself. Be really vulnerable with yourself and do that check-in. Because raising your awareness, being honest about it, will allow you then to use those fears to fuel you to show up better, rather than having them come up and playing a soundtrack as that inner critic in your mind that's going to affect how you show up. But also, particularly on your sales calls, really consider in advance, as part of your check-in prep, what fears will be driving my prospective client? What is it? This will cost too much. It's going to be too pushy on this call. People are going to think I'm being self-indulgent or crazy. My partner won't support this. Who am I to think I can do this? All of the fears that they're bringing to the table, think about those as part of your preparation process. And then, because then you can decide, how can I use that information to show up better and move them past their fear in this sales call? It's not about you, it's about them. And that leads me to the E, the second in the no fear model, which is ego. Be really honest with yourself. How does ego show up for me? And how, and I want to emphasize this, how can I keep my ego out of it? Do not make the sales call about you. Make it about your prospective client. And in fact, if you find that you're making it about you, that you're selling yourself, immediately stop. I often joke, stop, drop, and roll, and switch the focus to your prospective client. Get curious, ask questions. Your goal needs to be, don't be thinking, my goal is the sale, my goal is the sale. Your goal should be, I need to figure out, what do they want? What is important to them? And pay attention to their language. Use it back in your conversation with them. And then think again about always that other flip side of that. How might ego show up for your prospective client? And how can you use that to get a better outcome? Now, the A, attachment. Think about, what might you be too attached to, right? Are you too focused on making the sale? Most of us, if we're being honest, that is the main, we are so focused on making the sale. So I invite you, be thinking, how can I stay flexible so I don't miss opportunities for better outcomes? What might your prospective client be too attached to? And how can you plan to move the dial on that by understanding it? And the fourth, the R in the no fear model is reactivity. What are your triggers? What are the things that may cause you to be reactive, and how can you address it? Because we all, particularly in sales, if we are feeling some of those fears, which most of us do, there are likely going to be triggers that are going to cause you to be reactive and then not show up as your best self. So if you think about that in advance, it can diffuse the power and reduce the chance of that reactivity derailing you off your goal, which is making it about them. So be prepared so that you can quickly ground yourself and stay focused on the objective, not on your reactivity. And then, as always, what triggers might cause reactivity in your prospective client, and how can you avoid that? Now, I know when I started this business, I was taking my lead, and my advice from all the other, leaders in the space. And if I'm being really honest, I was pushing and I felt stretched in a million directions. And some of you may resonate with that. I see you nodding, right? And most importantly, I was trying to sell myself and my programs. I talked about my programs. I talked about what I offered. I talked about what it would do for them. I talked about what it included. I wasn't using my own methods in my sales process. And I'm embarrassed to say it's a relatively recent epiphany about using my negotiation models in my own sales process. I paid lip service to it before, but it's only recently that I really keyed into absolutely surrendering that need for the sale, that focus on the sale, that making it about me, selling myself and my programs, and totally making it about my prospective client. And it has had immediate positive impacts for that. So make the discussion about them. Let them see their big vision. Let them see it, taste it, feel it, hear it, smell it. Make the discussion a sensory experience for your prospective client. You can get their complete buy-in when you get them there with you, seeing it, believing in it for themselves. And again, whatever it is that you're selling, whatever your business, that is the key to really effective sales. So for me, I had to sit back and really face my fear, ego, attachment, and reactivity, let go of my fear, ego, attachment, and reactivity, and totally surrender to make it about them and put myself fully in their shoes. And when I showed up from that total place of curiosity and empathy, I saw a softening in these discovery calls I was having. It opened the space to find buy-in, to understand more fully what they wanted and needed. Super powerful shift. So I invite you, think of how you might apply that in your sales model. Look below the surface to the unstated needs. And once you've gone through that no fear checklist, and it gets really quick as you make this sort of part of your regular practice, it can be just a matter of moments, frankly, to go through it. Once you've done that, then I ask you to consider my 5W model. And again, just really simply, when you're getting ready for that sales call, as part of your preparation process, go through who, what, where, when, why, right? Who are you? What role are you going to show up in? And I invite you, be intentional about not showing up as the salesperson, but instead show up as a confidant, a friend, a partner, at the very least, a mirror for them to see their own possibility. And again, regardless of your business, that is a beautiful shift, right? Who do you want to show up as? Choose 3 words. They could be, and there's no right or wrong answer, and it might be different for every prospective sales call you have. The more you know about the person you're pitching, the more you're going to be able to tailor the 3 words for who you want to show up as to maximize the impact they have. Remember, the goal is to maximize your ability to influence and to persuade. You want them to buy. You want to pull them in. You're not pushing for the sale. You are pulling them in. And who are they going to expect you to show up as? They will be expecting the push. There will be resistance because they're expecting the push. So instead, pull them in. And consider the impact of these negotiations. They're going to be thinking about what their partner says or what whoever the other people are in their life. So really consider all of those elements of the who. And then on the what, obviously one of the what's is you want to be able to make that sale, right? You've got a substantive outcome you want, but also consider the process outcomes you want. What do you want as a process outcome? Because this first sales call or these ongoing sales calls, that you're building a relationship, be really intentional about that. And not only the process of how you interact with them, but also have the relationship itself as one of the outcome goals that you're really intentional about. What relationship outcome goal do I want out of this? Even if I don't get the sale, what relationship outcome do I have? Because if you build that relationship, maybe you don't get that sale today, but you're building that trust to be able to get that long-term buy-in to get an even bigger sale potentially down the road. And the where, it's funny, in real estate, location, 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 we know it's important. In the books we read, setting, we know it's important. We're less likely to consider that in terms of having these sales discussions. If you can, in person, I think gives the strongest connection still today. But most of your calls today in today's environment are likely going to be by Zoom or phone. So even in that case, people dismiss the where because they assume it's moot because it's going to be on a Zoom or on a phone call. But still, I invite you, Find somewhere comfortable and empowering for you. Create a space where you take these calls, where you have these sales calls, somewhere where you are going to feel at your best. Create a little environment where you feel at your best, and advise your prospective client to be somewhere where they are comfortable with no distractions so that you can be fully engaged. They will ultimately appreciate that as well. And again, when, as kids, we knew timing was important. As adults, somehow we kind of forget that, right? So I invite you to think about the when. What time of the day are you at your best? Schedule your calls to the extent that you can. Schedule these sales meetings when you know you're going to be at your best, and or when your prospective client is going to be likely to be at their most receptive. And finally, the last W in our quintuplet of W's is why. Really tap in again, remind yourself of your deep why. And remember, your deep why is not making the sale. Yes, we want the sale, but your deep why is actually your bigger mission. Whatever caused you to start your business, your coaching work, your consulting work, whether, as I say, whether you're entrepreneur, coach, or consultant, you've got a bigger mission that caused you to step out onto this bold journey. So really consider your deep why, and again, the deep why of your prospective client as well. What are their unstated deep needs, their deep why? Imagine what a game changer applying that simple 5W method could be to all of your sales negotiations and beyond, frankly. So once you've done the no fear and the 5W review, next on the hit list is what I call the R-FIT model. And I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but I want to touch on at least the 3 key models in that framework, that sort of golden trilogy in the art of feminine negotiation. There are other aspects, but you can take what pieces of this resonate for you to help increase your ability to get those sales. And interestingly, well, this is the last one that I invite you to apply in your prep work. Remember, I said do it in that order: the no fear, quick check-in, right, on that model. Then your 5W, quick check-in on that model. And then this R-FIT one I'm about to share, quick check-in on that. But this was the first one that I discovered on my journey to creating the art of feminine negotiation. Because when I examine the elements that make and mark the most effective negotiators, or salespeople for that matter, it comes down to 6 key skills: assertiveness, rapport building, empathy, flexibility, intuition, and trust. So just think of a simple mnemonic, R-FIT. You are fit to be a great negotiator, or you are fit to be a great salesperson. And leaving aside assertiveness, you may or may not have noticed that 5 out of 6 of those factors are typically considered soft skills or feminine traits. So how crazy is it that we've all been buying into this masculine push model, when in fact the pull, more feminine model is actually going to get us better results? And even with assertiveness, which is the one people consider to be the masculine of that sextuplet, I think it's because they conflate assertive with aggressive, and they're not the same thing. I say it over and over again: assertiveness comes from confidence, confidence comes from knowledge, and knowledge comes from preparation. And these 3 models will give you that preparation to get better outcomes. Adopt those feminine traits and skill sets, even though the rest of our systems are inexplicably built on more competitive models. So consider, how can I build rapport, bring empathy, be flexible, trust my intuition, build trust, and be assertive, which is just confidence based on your prep. So building rapport, find a point of connection with your prospective client. Mirror and match. And by that, I don't mean that lean in when they lean in, cross your arms because they do. Yes, that can help, but you got to be really skilled to pull that off well. But do pay attention to their tone, to their pacing, to the volume. Those things are easy to mirror and match. As you can gather, I tend to speak really quickly, very passionate about my approach. If I'm speaking with somebody who's lower key, I will try to a certain extent to mirror and match so that I'm building that rapport. And the key is empathy. So again, you were going through that R-FIT model. So we're going to keep the A till the end, but R for building rapport, E for empathy. Get curious. Ask them to envision their best future. And I'll often do sometimes 1 year, sometimes 5 years, depending on the person, and ask them, imagine that it's 1 year from now and you're looking back on the last year and it has been the absolutely best year of your life. What would that look like for you? And then you get them to invoke all of their senses. So they are fully immersed in the sensory experience of what their best year of their life would look like, including all of the elements, their career, their health, their relationships, their growth mindset, financially, on every aspect going through, and make sure they're considering that. Because if they're like most people, they're going to pick maybe one or two areas and imagine that. So part of your ability to build that relationship is letting them have a bigger vision, reminding them that there is more to life than just one or two aspects of their life. You will already be building their trust when you do that. And pay attention to their language, because you're going to want to use their language back to them when you point out how you're going to be able to meet those needs. And find out what their perceived obstacles are. Put yourself fully in their shoes. Ask questions. Find out what they see as the roadblocks, as the obstacles, the things that will stop them from stepping into whatever it is that you have to offer. And consider your no fear prep. What are the fears that are going to be driving them? Ensure that they feel fully seen, heard, and that they matter. And be open, be receiving, tap into your intuition to what's the most important. When are they being really vulnerable? When are they saying what they think is expected of them? When are they coming from a place of conditioning? So trust your intuition, but also try to get them to a place where they trust their intuition. And be flexible about your various offers and what best fits. Be prepared to offer something unique in their situation, maybe even outside of your formal program. If you pay attention, you can pick this up. I've been able to get successful sales because here's my programming, but I was listening to what they said, and they had some concern about that, just happened to come up in conversation about a legal issue they were dealing with, about a parent having to go to long-term care. And I had had a recent experience or offered my legal advice in that moment, or a connection that they happened to mention that they needed, and I happen to have that connection outside of the program that I'm selling or whatever the thing is you're selling. When you are open and receiving and curious, you may be able to offer things that are outside the box that will cinch the relationship for you. Get them to a place where they trust you, but also get them to a place where they trust themselves to make that decision, more importantly. So we have just scratched the surface here of the trilogy of models for the art of feminine negotiation. I hope you are beginning to see the power of these simple models and shifts, and I hope you can see why I am so excited about sharing them as widely as we can. I think the more we lean into our feminine, the potential is right here in the palm of our hands with some very simple shifts and reframes that can have profound potential impact. So I'm passionate about the subject. As Kathleen said, my book, The Art of Feminine Negotiation, How to Get What You Want from the Boardroom to the Bedroom, will certainly help you take a deeper dive on this. Or I have mastermind or individual coaching as well. Take a look. For Kathleen, because I love her and the work that she does, I am offering up for you guys as well. If you want a quick sort of a resource, normally it's only for people who buy the book can get access to this, but I think it's valuable even if you don't have the book. Just go to artoffemininenegotiationbook.com. artoffemininenegotiationbook.com, and you'll get linked in right away to a workbook to get you on your journey about digging into the art of feminine negotiation, and some free resources and ebooks, including a couple of the models that we talked about here today. So now I'm happy to open the floor if anybody has any burning questions.
Yes, Cindy, wow, so much content, so many great tips. I mean, I have 2 pages of notes as always, and there were so many great things that you mentioned about your 3 models. And as I'm looking in the chat, I've got a couple questions from our audience. The first question is, Cindy, loved the presentation. And what do you suggest that I do when I get pushback from clients about my fees?
Absolutely. I love that. And that's one of the reasons with most of my clients that we start with that mindset piece, right? Pushing past our own limiting beliefs. And that's why I'm such a big believer in the no fear model. So you will often get pushback about your fees, and you do not want to make yourselves the Walmart of your industry. I mean, if you take a look at the price points, I invite all of you to go and take a look at some of the price points that are being charged by some of these male leaders that we talked about in the industry. They are unapologetic about having their programs in the high 5 figures, some of them in 6-figure programs that they're offering. And yet as women, I find we so often struggle to even get ourselves up to that 5-figure, getting ourselves to that $10,000 or $20,000 sort of price points for coaching. So if you're getting pushback about it, own your value. And this is where that preparation comes in. Be prepared to remind them about their value, right? Not making it about selling yourself. I'm worth it because of X, Y, Z, but rather remind them, don't you believe you're worth this investment? Remember a few moments ago when we talked about that vision that you had, that vision, you could see it, you could taste it. It is worth the investment to be able to invest in yourself so that you can live into the fullness. We only get this one life, right? So to be able to own that, and I know even in my law practice, so again, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, so this isn't just about the coaching, I assumed incorrectly that if I made myself the most cost effective, that people would really appreciate that. But you know what? I got to tell you, after 30 years in the business, well, I learned earlier than that, but more and more it's been reinforced. When we undervalue ourselves, we are inviting other people to undervalue us as well. And that's one of the things, especially depending on the nature of your work. If what you're offering is an empowerment program or an entrepreneurial program or a business coaching program, then the more you stand firm on your pricing and invite them to get to a stage where they're comfortable trusting in their value, that's going to be very appealing. So great question. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. And we have another question in the chat, which is, Susan says, I don't know how to deal with the nervousness I feel when I'm negotiating. How would you recommend, Cindy, that I deal with nervousness?
Oh, great question. And we all have that. And to be honest, like a lot of people show up and they look like they don't have a care in the world. And most people who know me would have thought when I was doing that, when I switched that, when I was in that transition phase when I started with Women on Purpose, people would have thought I was, and often commented, oh, that's so easy for you. It wasn't. I had butterflies all the time, right? So recognize that you're not alone, but also one of the reasons I feel so strongly about these models is when you've done this preparation, you are going to have more confidence. And the other beauty of the pull versus push is it allows you to disengage a little bit from the end result. When you're so focused, Susan, on I need to make this sale, there's this pressure and those fears get triggered, that fear of getting the no, the fear of the rejection. When instead you look at this as just a gorgeous opportunity to build relationship, to build connection, to find out more about this prospective client, a lot of that pressure and nervousness that you feel will be taken off. And part of it as well is, so go through the prep work because that will help you feel the confidence that you need to show up, release your angst around the end result, be open to that attachment piece, but also practice, 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 especially if you've got a number that makes you uncomfortable. Practice in front of the mirror, practice saying it repeatedly, practice with friends, frankly, or somebody else in your family, because when you're in that discussion with somebody, when you're having that sales conversation, you want to be so comfortable about the number or the offer that you're throwing out there that a lot of that angst and nervousness you're talking about will dissipate.
Wow. Great, Cindy. Oh my goodness. So great. And so we want to remind everyone, connect with Cindy Watson on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You're all over social. I think you're also you've got a TikTok channel.
I even started TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Clubhouse. I mean, you're everywhere. So be sure to connect with Cindy. My goodness. Yeah. So as we complete our program, again, powerhouse today. Fabulous. Oh my goodness. What a way to start the week, Cindy. Thank you very, very much. Because we're
thank you, Kathleen.
Oh,
and I would just say as well for them, the artoffemininenegotiationbook.com is the resource page, but feel free to just go to artoffemininenegotiation.com as well if you want to see my blog post or podcast or learn a little bit more about this issue.
Wonderful. Thank you. So let's complete and we'll talk about how we're going to continue our beautiful program this week with International Coaching Week. together we are creating a community, a global community of committed and powerful coaches. And so come into our council, our C-Suite Network Council. We are so delighted to welcome you. And of course, what's next for tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday is we're talking more about exploring your potential and how to expand and maximize and optimize. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about, I get the great privilege to share how to help and guide and mentor and coach our sisters in corporate. What is it that women in corporate are looking for? How can we support them in teams, in groups, helping them with the things that are important to them, which is moving up the corporate ladder, negotiating work-life balance, whatever you tend to call it, work-life harmony, whatever it is, to deal with the challenges in corporate. And now again, post-COVID, it's the pull and push, as Cindy is talking about, of going back into the work environment, and that has a lot of challenges. So we're going to have a very vigorous and delightful conversation with our mindset, of course, on negotiation. So with that, take a look at our YouTube channel. I think we're now up to 80 videos, and we're up to 56,000 clicks and views. We're so excited. Cindy's video will be posted there. And then, of course, Cindy, you've done some other videos. You've had other interactive gatherings with us in masterclasses and live streams. So yours are listed too. And so as we complete, we really believe in the C-Suite Network, Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. The real secret to everything that we're doing is being powerful together. So we invite you to come join us, where we're just delighted to promote you, showcase you, and highlight you as a coach, consultant, trusted advisor, thought leader, and expert, giving you a platform to rise and shine. So with that, set up a discovery call with me. Let's talk about your practice, your business. Where are you now? And let's make a plan for what the rest of this year looks like and beyond. Okay. And as we complete, we always like to put a little bookshelf, kind of ending on our time together. Take a moment. We encourage you, take a moment and think about what is your biggest takeaway from our time together with Cindy Watson. We're going to do a ton of social posts. C-Suite Network will do many, many posts for us as well. Think about what was your biggest takeaway from our time. Post it in our social. Let's get the conversation going, because we're all about supporting you and supporting and highlighting our esteemed faculties. So with that, again, thank you, Cindy Watson. Thank you to everyone who's watching our broadcast. And we'll continue the conversation on social, right, Cindy? You'll take questions in our Q&A and comments. So
Absolutely.
With that, we'll see you tomorrow talking about supporting our sisters in corporate. Can't wait. Bye for now. Thank you.